Hello, everyone, and welcome to 2025, a brand new League of Legends year here in esports, a brand new format, which brings Dom and myself a brand new host. Please welcome for the first time onto the show after making multiple stops across the league ecosystem. Oklahoma City Thunder, Houston Rockets, Brooklyn
Yep.
Nets, 76ers, and currently taking cash in
Yes,
LA from the Clippers.
the
Welcome,
Clippers,
everyone. Jamada
Clippers,
Harden.
James
Jamada,
Harden.
Jamada, welcome to the broadcast, brother. It has been a long time coming. Congratulations. And how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good. It's big shoes to fill, I suppose. But also I just want to make it completely clear. Every single James Harden reference just goes over my head. Like I am so completely ignorant to NBA and American sports culture. But it's a great meme at this point. I can't really play it down. It's fantastic.
Like, bring it up. Just pull up the side by side right now. Like, you could just any photo, bro. Any of them, any team, any
Yeah.
jersey, and
It
come on.
doesn't
Was
matter,
this
does it?
started by the league community, or had
know
you
what?
heard this before?
No, I hadn't heard it before. It was a league community thing. I can't even
Okay.
remember. Someone did it like one time, and I was like, okay, that's just not funny. But it is kind of funny. And then I guess someone must have said it in your chat, and you caught on. And you was like, hold on a second, he
Yep.
does look like James Harden.
Yeah.
And then from then, ever since our little beef, I think it was like LPL finals last year, right?
Yeah.
Side by side.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everyone knows now, and it's not a problem. It's really funny because even I can't ignore it. Like we do look like each other. Um, he might be my like second cousin or something. There might be a direct relation.
Perfect.
Yeah, that is awesome. For fans that don't know or didn't follow you beforehand, kind of give yourself the elevator pitch of your journey within League of Legends and why we found you, why you think we found you
Oh,
worthy of the spot here on the show.
wow. Okay. Well, the shorthand story is I started coaching in the ERLs in like 2019. I picked up kind of a bit of a passion for casting because I did it for like a community run tournament. And then you guys will know Orcs. I reached out to him. I was like, hey, because Orcs at the time was casting ERLs, the UK scene ERL. And I was like, hey, what do I have to do to cast? He's like, get more experience. And I was like, okay, cool. Did that, came back. And then I was working with him on the NLC for 2 years. He then abandoned me, went to the LPL.
Yep.
And
And
that's
then LPL to go to the LCK.
right. The same year I come to the LPL, then a few years later after doing NLC and guesting on LEC, he's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go to the LCK now. So
he
I
just
joined the
hates you.
LPL. He
Like-
might just hate me. Like he brought me into the scene to then leave me at every opportunity that we could have to work together, and he's done that for the past 3 years now.
Nice.
So Orcs, if you're watching this, why do you hate me? And then yeah, I guess why am I here? If it's not at least in part got something to do with mine and Dom's beef on Twitter, which by the way, to lift the curtain, this is the first time Dom and I have actually spoken over voice. Like this is
Yes.
the first time me and Dom have even spoken to each other. Which makes it all the more special in my mind because it's like we've just hated each other for no reason other than to just the love of the game.
The love of the game. Yeah, I mean, you're just a real hater. Also, mostly like when people flame me on Twitter, they just or like when I flame somebody on Twitter, it kind of dies down. But you were going off. Like I was actually surprised the traction your hatred tweets towards me were getting. Like I had to respect it as a fellow hater. You know, I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy actually wants me dead.
Well, that may be far, but look, I was taught always to stand my ground, right? Never give up on a fight if it feels like it's
Okay.
one you can take. So yeah, I wasn't gonna take your shit. We had to fight back. We had to get the ratios in,
Okay.
all of the Twitter nonsense.
Absolutely.
All right, well, welcome, Jamada, again. Really excited to have you on the show. Hear your takes, no hold back. Again, you've heard how he's well-traveled, has covered multiple different regions. You hear the accent, you know it's somewhere in Europe, but also spends time in the States as well. So all over the place. We're expecting a lot of good takes here throughout the split. And he's not the only one that's had a lot of news coming up. Dom, you are joining the league ownership oversight thing of the UK NLC thing with Ruddy
Yep.
Core. Like, what's going on? What's going on with that?
Yeah, I decided to, start a content creator team or pretty much join up with a content creator team, get players that, I know from my content. The Sack, we've had, 3 of those guys in there. Hums is a friend that I've had for a while. Support, we kind of had open. We just let like the players decide whoever they wanted to play with. And yeah, we decided to have a team together. Also, I wanted to kind of change co-streaming content. Essentially, what I'm trying to do this year to just peel back everything is to just make it more enjoyable to, not just be co-streaming all the time, but do other stuff. So I have a couple things that I'm working on. That's one. Another one will come out here shortly, and I'm going to just be trying to do multiple different things to vary my life a little bit, because at some point it's like, damn, I've been co-streaming every region in my room for like years now. let's try something else. So yeah, we have stuff planned for the NLC streams to make them really special. And hopefully everything goes well, man. Like, it's cool to just have a bunch of people that I've, had on my content before. I've done sacked out episodes here on the channel with Perks and with Perks and Yankos. I did crackdowns with those as well. I did crackdown with Leader before. Like, so these are people that I've known for years. So it's cool to just have them like on a team together and just have something that we're building up. And also I think it's kind of the future of league content is people want to be more connected to the players that they're watching. So having content creator teams and showing everything is actually really fun for people to watch, just seeing the interactions of a team. And obviously when you do a content team, the content comes first before the actual like winning. Like, you always want to win, but if you wanted to win over everything else, you wouldn't stream anything. You just go and scrim like every other team does, right? So the idea is that you have good content, but you also show how teams work through problems, like how they improve over time. And you have players that are competent that know how to improve. You have some of the best players in European history on this team. So, I mean, I just think it'll be a really fun project to be attached to. And yeah, we just have a bunch of things coming with it. And yeah, that starts in 2 days. I'll be debuting everything. So hopefully it goes well. There's a lot of parts moving. So hopefully everything goes smoothly with the broadcast.
What is what is your involvement with it? Are you gonna have competitive involvement with the team? There we go. That's the question.
Like maybe light competitive involvement. And Yamada's essentially going to be the coach of the team. Maybe I'll join scrims when I can, stuff like that, depending on days and schedule and stuff like this. But I'm one of the owners of the team, and then also I'm going to be like putting on big productions every time that we have our matches. So that's essentially my involvement, like content creator and then owner.
All right, brother. Well, again, good luck with that endeavor. Going to be a huge, huge year in League of Legends this year, as we have now had lots of different changes kind of permeate throughout. In the esports space, we've now shifted to 3 different splits. We've got Fearless Draft. We've got different group stages. We had a couple organizations leave. We have the mixing of Brazil and North America as well for the LTA. There's a lot to go through. Before we jump into all of that, we wanted to cover a little bit of a league that has already started, not one of the cup tournaments. Like, we had Kespa Cup, we had Demacia Cup, we had the opening season event over in LCK. LPL has kicked off. Dom and Jamada have both watched the matches. I've watched the matches. What are some quick takeaways in the first 3 matches that we've seen of these best of 5 fearless formats? And Dom, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the games so far in LPL have been kind of like sleepers. I mean, not really sleepers, I guess, because the game's been crazy, but it's just not like the hype teams haven't played. BLG hasn't played yet. AL, TES, like these are the teams that I think are going to be at the top of the league. They haven't played yet. But overall, it's been cool to just see how the new changes have worked in. And yeah, Fearless Draft, I think is fun. I mean, you're starting to see some trends. Like, one of the trends that you see in LPL right now is that when you do a best of 5 Fearless Draft, AD carries get pinched super hard because there's just not that many AD carries available, and Kalista gets banned a lot of the time. Ash, Varus are the other 2 prio ADs. Normally they're traded off in the first game or first couple games. And then once you get to games 3, 4, and 5, you see teams really start collapsing in terms of AD pool, because when all the big ADs are out, you're left with things like Twitch, Sivir, Jinx, and a lot of these types of picks are conditional. So you see teams pick champions where they're like, oh, I guess the best AD left is Jinx, for example. But you could just go into a game where, sure, Jinx is a fine AD carry, or it's like viable, or you can lane into a lot of the other things that are being available in the pool, things that you can pick in the pool. the problem that you see is like these could be horrible games for the ADs. So I think that we might start seeing some really interesting stuff with Fearless Draft. I mean, one thing about Fearless Draft that can happen since it is full Fearless is you're not playing champions and banning them out for yourself the same way that it was last split in the soft Fearless. In full Fearless, they're banned for everyone, right? So you can do things like ban out a ton of AD carries by just picking like full AD carry comp in one of the games. You know, you go into a game and you just full troll it, pick 5 ADs, ban a couple more, and you might end up like with 0 ADs playable, and people have to play like Seraphine bot and Karthus and Yasuo and stuff like this. So I'm looking to see how far teams are going to go when it comes to limiting the pool. Obviously, you can also just ban a lot of ADs later on in the game. So I'm starting to see like where the Fearless is going to get really interesting in the future.
Jamada?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm on the same boat as Dom. I think the strategy side of drafting has gotten really interesting. I think the fact that we're already getting to the point where we're getting those conditional picks, I think at some point one team is just going to start breaking out mages from like the beginning of a series, so they have ADs for later on in the series. I think otherwise, like the changes, like the actual gameplay changes, I guess the only interesting thing to me is how teams are or actually not sometimes prioritizing like the feats of strength and then kind of running games for Atacon at the minute, just because I don't know, it's a shiny new buff that spawns on either side of the map. I think for me the big thing though is that because of the way that buff works, and I'm sure we might touch on it a little bit later, we're only pretty much getting the GA version of that buff, which I think is creating some very interesting sequences of play where some teams are kind of willing to just I guess, you know, reset their tempo kind of quickly if they can take a tower or get a kill and just respawn back out on the map.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive into all the changes that 2025 has brought in our next segment. Any final thoughts here on LPL week 1 so far? What we're three series in. Was there any surprises? Like, I think that last match was a match between the 3rd and 4th place squads in the group between RNG and FPX. It wasn't, I mean, it was the first one that, right? It wasn't a 3-0, so it was a little fight back. Milky Way, right?
The Milky Way series, well, it's the Milky Way series. RNG FPX is fun. I'm thinking still, my mind's still on yesterday and watching TTLNG. Satab and his. If we ever see Satab on a 0 again, bad things might have to happen, man. I was a super. I mean, I was casting on the unofficial LPL English, which was fun. But I feel like TT, Satab aside, might actually surprise and get out of that group because they've already beaten LNG, and I don't necessarily feel like EDG's that strong a roster. That I have a feeling they might just kind of run it. We'll have to see once they eventually play each other. But I'm weirdly excited for TT because they've obviously been out on the fringe of like barely in playoffs and out of it for the last couple of years.
Yeah, Satab split time last split on DRX with Yehu, eventually ended up losing out to Yehu, but had moments. He had he had medium highs and low lows. Yehu had
saw those
lower
low lows yesterday.
Yeah. And so like,
I feel like we've only seen low lows from him in the LPL so far. Like his Demacia Cup performance was also pretty fucking bad. I mean, obviously there's language barrier, so I'm not going to go too hard yet, but he has been really questionable in most games. And the thing that's strange for me is normally when you have imports come in that have the language barrier, you see the coordination being the main issue. But the thing that's been so strange about Satab is like it feels like he's mechanically so much worse than I remember him being in the LCK. Like he's just flashing into walls, just playing things absolutely disgusting. It's like, bro, he has some talent, right? Like he's not completely talentless, right? So why does he just look so bad mechanically? It looks really confusing, but I mean, it's probably just nerves and being in a different region and being so young and not knowing what your teammates are saying, etc.
yeah, there were for me being from LCK, from last split, seeing the players that ended up moving to the LPL was interesting. The Karis and Taeyun, the Moha moving on over, Satab moving on over. It's kind of interesting. Pays is the only one that went over, and I'm like, hey, Pays is good. We know Pays is good. That makes sense. Coach Nofe, who was like casting in the LCK and then did the LPL reports around the LCK content, that made a lot of sense. But like a couple of these other ones were like, I don't know what the LPL squads were looking and seeing, and maybe there'll be more games for players like Moham and players like Saytop to prove themselves. I mean, Moham, he can only go up. He can only go up, and Saytop had his bad game, and then proved it afterwards. So we'll see, and we'll talk more about LPL next week when all of week 1 is concluded. All right, next up we have ourselves Keep or Kick, but before we do that, it's time for our first ad read of the year. We know that all of you fans here at Last Free Nation and Power Spike have supported us throughout, and one of the major ones that we use all the time, that's right, it's Factor. Our friends over at Factor are making chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well and easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat in 2 minutes so that you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active and busy lifestyle, just like what Dom does. And they're saying lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals based on a randomized controlled clinical trial with Factor Keto. Results may vary depending on diet and exercise, but for those of you that have had that New Year's resolution to get yourself fit, working out, that's the easy part. You go, you do that. That's fun. You feel the effort, but it's usually the food that messes you on up, and Factor can help you out with that one. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Yamato was pinging us earlier being like, hey, where are the Factor meals? Can I get some of those? And Dom uses them all the time. Dom, you're still sticking with Factor, man. Like, how
I had
easy
one
does
for
it make your life?
breakfast on stream yesterday. Literally, I was just like, I went down to the kitchen and I have like some breakfast food, and I was just feeling it. I'm like, I want a Factor meal right now. So I heated up a Factor meal in the middle of LPL. I had some like garlic chicken thighs with like mushrooms, and it has like a cauliflower rice with
Oof.
like a cheese in it, and
Hell yeah.
it banged. It was really nice. So I eat Factor meals all the time. I've been subscribed to them for years at this point. Get 12 meals a week, and yeah, I mean that's like a staple in my diet is that I have Factor meals. I think it's just one of the best ways to be cognizant of what you're eating. For me, like a lot of times, I think the problem is not knowing like how many calories things have. Even if you cook for yourself, like it's hard for me to know how many calories like I'm eating. I mean, obviously you can do like a scale and stuff, but I'm not gonna sit there and weigh all my food like that. Like I'm just not. I don't care that much, Like maybe if I got giga fat, it would be time to start doing that. But for me, having the calories and knowing what I'm eating, having the protein, and everything right there, and just being able to have easy access to like a good meal whenever I want is so valuable. So I've been with Factor for years. Continue to eat Factor meals. I just eat them literally every single day.
Boom. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/powerspike50 off and use code powerspike50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code powerspike50 off at factormeals.com/powerspike50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thanks to our friends over at Factor. All right, y'all. Time for Keeper Kick. First one of the year, and it's about the year itself. Season 2025 changes. Obviously, the map has changed. Otacon has come on in, back from being dormant until Mordekaiser woke his ass up and then put himself onto the rift. Feats of strength as well. Let's get into it. What are we keeping? What are we kicking about the changes in 2025?
I think for me, I'm not a big fan of the general theme. It feels very forced. I don't know if this is a hot take or not. I don't know if this is a hot take or not.
Okay.
But maybe I'm one of those guys I don't like change, right? I wouldn't have minded the changes as they were without all the Noxus like surrounding nonsense. It feels like kind of a weird forced narrative. That said, if they're gonna cover all of the rest of the regions at some point, then sure, maybe they can, maybe it can be cool. I just think for their first go at it, this was maybe a little bit too gimmicky for me. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the map. And you know what? I'm actually more mad because people have been asking for things like Halloween map, Christmas map, or like snow map for years. And then we finally get some like wide sweeping map changes, and it's the Noxus stuff. So yeah, maybe that's part of my reason for having a little bit more of a disdain for it.
I've noticed
John,
as a
what do you think
hater,
it?
it's easier to flame when the whole map is kind of red. Like it puts me in an angry mood playing League. Like right from when I load in, I'm just like kind of pissed off. So I feel like the theme for me it matches well. You know, I like the Noxus map. I mean, to be honest, I don't really care about stuff like that. I think the changes are pretty weird. Just overall, like the Otacon stuff. I think that they've just created like unsolvable problems. How do you solve the Otacon problem? Because solo queue is always going to have way more kills than pro play. So if you ever get it to the state where it's happening, it looks like they're trying to push it towards that in solo queue, like 50% of your games are ruinous Otacon, the other 50 are voracious. If you ever get it to that state, then it will literally just never be ruinous Otacon. It already is literally never. Like we've been watching LPL for 3 days now. There hasn't been one game, and LPL is mentally ill. Like there's games with 14 kills before 20 minutes before it spawns, and nothing. Like there's no ruinous Otacon. It's always voracious every single game. So I don't know how you ever balance the game to the point where it's actually happening 50% of the time in pro play and 50% of the time in solo queue, unless you just make it pure RNG. You're just like, hey, the game starts and this is the Otacon for this game. Good luck, guys.
Kind of like Drake's, or Drake order at least, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, they've always hated the idea of disclosing that information. Like, they never tell you what soul is going to be spawning, which was the whole thing that people were asking for. Like, oh, maybe you could tailor your team comp to it if you knew what soul was spawning. So I just don't know if we're ever going to see Ruinous Otacon in pro play. It seems like the next patch they released information that they're going to push it even more towards the voracious side because they're saying that it's not spawning enough. It's only 15% of solo queue games. But yeah, I mean, it's literally 0% in competitive. So I don't know how to balance it. Seems weird.
So just humor me a little bit because my season hasn't started fully yet. Ruinous Otacon is the one that spawns less, right? That's the one that spawns less when it's high damage skirmishes, or that's the one that spawns more?
That's the one that spawns less when there's high damage in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the one that drops the blood roses. Yeah. Okay. So most of the time we've only seen, at least in pro play so far, voracious Otacon with the GA where you just go bomb it down mid and
when LCK starts, we are never going to see that. There's going to be one Otacon in LCK. They're not going to even make an overlay for the second one. It's just going to be voracious every fucking game. Like, there's no chance that we're hitting Ruinous Otacon in pro play. I mean, it's just the amount of fighting you need is just it's like you'd have to play the game intentionally bad in a pro game in order to like hit it. That's how it feels.
So I got to sit in some scrims in the off season, and I got to see a decent amount of Ruinous Otacon. Like they did. Like it was a lot of the pedals and that the one with the spinning attack, and I got to see a lot of it. But yeah, in pro play they haven't shown that as much, and I guess we'll see.
Because you're watching scrims, you're not watching stage games.
That's true, exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Has there been a pattern on what side, like top or bottom, it's been going on, or has that just been based on the gameplay?
I think it's been pretty even. As far as it, maybe it's slightly sided to bot.
I was going to say, I think it's slightly sided to bot. I've definitely seen it spawn bot in pro more than I've seen it spawn top. But it does occasionally spawn top. I think it's also dependent, like, is there a lane swap in the game, right? I think that's probably if there's a lane swap in the game and it's like an active lane swap where people are constantly rotating and then like random deaths kind of just happen as they do, it feels like in the current lane swap now, then you'll see it top. But if it's standard lanes, then it's almost always bot. I don't think I see it really spawn top. It's like a 65-35 split.
Yeah. I mean, also that's something that we need that you need to consider is that in pro play there's lane swaps so frequently now. I mean, you're trying to lane swap almost every single game in pro play. So if lane swaps are happening every single game in pro play and you never lane swap in solo queue, then how are you ever going to hit the same threreshold at the same rate between solo queue and pro play? And Riot's really allergic to like the 2-patch idea, the whole idea of having a pro patch and a normal patch for solo queue. They've said before they want it to feel like you're playing the pro game when you're in solo queue. Like they want to be able, the fantasy of solo queue is that you could watch a pro league game and then if you get good enough, you could queue up and then play with those pro players like, an hour or two later. That's supposed to be the attractive point of solo queue. But it just seems like now with these conditions being in the game, like I just don't know how you can balance it unless you like remove lane swap or just do really crazy things to the game.
Yeah, I don't understand that one either because, if you just go across traditional sports, not even talking about professional, but like the balance between, hey, if we go play pickup soccer, we don't expect to be doing overlapping runs and having shape like we're seeing Real Madrid, Manchester United, Barcelona. We're not seeing that shit. If you go and throw the football around, you're not expecting to see crossing patterns and all that shit, right? It is very different, the structure of professional play and recreational play, and even competitive recreational play. And it's supposed to be that way. What you do get out of it, though, are those moments where it feels like the same, and then you get to go watch them do that, at such a high level. That should be the closest thing. So, like, I hadn't really thought about the 2-patch idea, what you brought up before, Dom, but I like that. I like that a lot. And just having it be like, look, man, let the pros do the pro thing, and no one in solo queue is gonna cry and say like, I can't do X, Y, and Z. I can't lane swap in solo queue because this patch is different than pro play, and that's what I want to do. Like, that's so rare.
And it's also not that big of a change. I mean, like, let's say the only difference between a pro patch and a solo queue patch was the threshold needed to hit Ruinous Otacon. Like, they just lowered it for pro play, like in the game. I feel like that would change almost nothing in terms of the experience of watching. It would almost make it closer to your own games, because then you would actually have the ability to get both, whereas in pro play you only see one.
Yeah. Going back to your original point here of what you're kicking, and we'll get to what you're keeping here in a little bit, Jamada. I do like the idea of it being themed in Noxus, mainly because, one, I've never looked up the lore or really sat down and looked at every single champion that's in Noxus and looked at the whole lore of League of Legends, and I've been about this game for a while, and I like the idea that it connects. It connects to Arcane. We're all connecting everything. That feels good. That feels good, and feels like maybe we won't get a exponential surge of players, but maybe we would get some players. They would have to work on the practice tool and all these other things, but the curiosity was there, and I like the idea that it covers that. And then they said throughout the different seasons they're going to do different regions. That part to me is cool as well. Like, maybe we go to Freylord, maybe we do Void, whatever it is. That's kind of cool. And 3 regions per year, and then I forgot how many regions that there is, maybe 9 or 12 or something like that. That's 4 more years of content for League of Legends that at least they're thinking about, and it doesn't feel like it's pulled out of thin air. I am just, like, from an aesthetic standpoint and an organizational standpoint, feels like Riot's thinking about it a little more. So I do push back on your kicking the Noxus map and kicking the Noxian thing out.
I just wanted to so I didn't watch Arcane, but what was it? Was it themed about Noxus?
Or they play a part in it. They do play. It was in Piltover and Zon, but then a Noxian general is
Ambessa.
Ambessa is a Noxian general, and Mel is from Noxus but put in Piltover leadership, blah blah blah. And it feels like the next story would be using Noxus, and it would be using the Black Rose, which is part of Noxus, kind of like with LeBlanc. So
like
it tied it in.
It's weird. Yeah.
It tied it in a little bit. At least it made it curious. So not something where it's like a new champ, so we're gonna just buff the shit out of it. It's like, hey, it's a new region, and maybe we make that one a little bit more interesting. So I thought that was cool.
I just thought that the idea would be that they would model things after either Arcane or like the book that came out. I don't know if anyone read that book, but I read it. It was the Ruination book, which is like a full book essentially on Viego and the Shadow Isles. So I thought that they would try to tie it to like one of the existing stories that they've told recently rather than put it in Noxus. I didn't even know that there was any Noxus in Arcane, but I thought that they would either make it like very Arcane centric or they would make it Shadow Isle centric, so that they attach it to one of the stories they've already told. Because I think the thing that's weird about lore in League of Legends is that, like, okay, so I don't know this for a fact. I've read people that are lore freaks that have said this, that the lore just randomly changed in League of Legends. Like, I never read the old lore, but apparently like the old lore existed, and then one day they just woke up and they're like, nope, just kidding, all that shit's bullshit, this is actually what happened. It's like, what the fuck? Like, can you even do that? And I mean, I guess I fucking did it, and that's what it is. So to me, it's always been hard to get into League of Legends lore because it never felt like a core part of the game. Like, it always felt like, like lore in League of Legends was essentially just a page at the end of when you clicked on a character, like the last tab in a character's like
The
profile
bio.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
in the bio. It wasn't something that it felt like was core about League of Legends. So it's weird to like start exploring it because if you played the game for like a long time, you were pretty much meant to not care about it. League was the game that didn't have lore really. It's like, oh yeah, you just like the feel of the game, champions, like playing the game, whatever, competitive stuff. No one really cared about the lore of the game because the lore didn't exist. Where as other games had like much like deeper lore generally, like Warcraft 3 had pretty deep lore. So when World of Warcraft came out, you kind of were like, oh shit, like that's that character. I remember that character. Oh, that's the leader of, that's Thrall or whatever, or Jaina. Like you understood like kind of the story of these characters. Where League, it's just, I mean, that's kind of the reason why I didn't watch Arcane, is I just don't like, nothing about how the game has been marketed to me since the beginning has been making me want to care about the characters in the game. I kind of just look, I'm like, hey, this character's OP. I don't think about, oh, do I like the story behind this character? I'm like, no, it fucking feels good to shit on people with this character. That's all I care about,
Right.
I mean,
right,
to be
right,
fair, I think it's a good piece of media though, so you probably should take the time at some point to watch it.
Yeah.
And you will get the references because you actually play League, unlike the broader Arcane audience who just shows up and is like, "Wow, Arcane," and then kind of have these weird arguments.
Wasn't there drama?
with League.
Wasn't there Twitter drama about
Yeah.
Arcane? Wait, is Arcane like super popular on Twitter or something? I didn't understand, but I
Yeah.
heard like people ranting about Arcane Twitter being
They-
like
they were-
giga
and-
cancer.
Yeah, I mean the Arcane fans have they're a certain type of way, and they're very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very passionate about their passion about Arcane, and so they've butted heads with like some of the lore heads, and more specifically, if you've been on Twitter and you're like active on League Twitter, you will have seen Hancock, who is the guy who cries about Victor and how Victor got his entire lore retconned.
Okay.
And to be fair, it did, and I kind of agree with him. I think new Victor kind of stinks comparatively to old Victor, but that's where a lot of that drama comes from, because it just felt like everything kind of came out of left field in terms of like, hey, Arcane is now realistically going to be the main lore of League of Legends. So everything that you see in Arcane is actually now retconning anything that existed about the lore that they've been setting up for years. So it's angered a lot of lore heads, unfortunately.
Yeah, it kind of felt like they took those characters that they used in Arcane, and they're like, your lore will probably change a little, if not a ton, and everyone else's will change a little, but unfortunately, Victor's is going to change a ton. Caitlyn's is going to change. Jace's is going to change, like shit like that. But we'll see what happens with everything else. It just, to me, like to your point, Dom, like we watched League, esports, and all that stuff for the sport, for playing the character, for playing champions because other pros were playing them and whatever. Like that's how I always saw it. But this whole thing kind of made me feel like, oh, it's a interesting take on something that I've seen for such a long time. So that was kind of cool. But all right, so that was my pushback on your kick. What's your keep? What is the change that you want to keep here for this season? And we'll start with you, Jamada.
I'm down for the feats of strength. I think as long as they adjust the first blood one, that feels too flippy, right? I think especially for solo queue. I like the idea of tier 3 boots. I don't mind them that much. I just think they need to slightly adjust the implementation. Because I think from a game design point of view, there's many ways where like the consequence of feats of strength being in the game is people just get more tilted, and like will just start flaming for less. And I think a perfect example is like the stats of like win rates for first blood and first tower basically didn't really change that much between patches.
Correct.
But everyone has been complaining that games feel more snowbally when statistically it's just not true. So it's like elements of gameplay on the screen make it seem like they're more snowbally, but they're not. So I think
it's actually fucking. I wonder if it's gonna go the other way, because I swear people are trolling their team by building the tier 3 boots. Like we've seen less of it after the first day, but they're bad. They're just bad boots. Like, and Riot has even came out and they're like, these are bad, but everyone is just fucking stupid in our community, so we're gonna keep them weak because I don't know. I guess we're making the game for them. Like that is pretty much what they came out and said. They didn't say it the same way I did, but it was essentially that. It's like, well, we'll give the community time to adjust to them. Like, they're not going to be smarter. Like,
strange.
It is what it is.
It's strange because League is entirely like has always been around like IM completions. So you would think, especially if you're like a longer term player, it's like, 700 gold for like the worst stats ever on these boots. I think like Swifties might be the only exception out of all of the boots off the top of my head. But even then, it's like 700, 800 gold away from, getting your next core item that might change how your champion works entirely. What's the point? Like it's a full build thing, right? It's kind of like the extension of them bringing back Zephyr for Berserker Greaves, except as a whole system as opposed to just one pair of boots. So yeah, I think if the implementation was a little bit better, maybe they make the stats a little bit more cost efficient or something to kind of make it like a trade off of like, hey, I'm gonna delay my next item, but I've got these tier 3 boots, and there's actually a an opportunity cost that feels worth it. But I'm down for them to stay. Right, I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think that the feats of strength generally are that bad. I think the implementation just needs slight tweaking.
I
There are
think
the win rates on your screen real quick, just
Oh, yeah.
showing the difference here. First blood, there's basically no change at all. Game time, basically no change at all. A little bit shorter, I guess, if it goes late. First turret win rate went up a little bit, and Baron win rate is exactly the same. So kind of interesting. Again, 2 days of data, but there it is. Like it's just like what Jamada said, it's more of a placebo effect.
yeah, I
Sorry,
think it's
Dom,
just
go ahead.
no, I just think it's so the only thing that I think is weird is the first blood the first blood feat, because that feels mega flip. Like
Yeah.
you're not making plays for first. I mean, most times you play jungle is just one of your lanes just gets solo killed. Like as you're clearing your first camp, one of your lanes gets solo killed, and you're like, all right, I guess we lost that feat. Like, and it just doesn't feel like you're actually doing anything to play around it. Like I like the idea of trying to make the teams play more around objectives. Like it seems like people care about objectives more, so that's nice to play with. But yeah, also the 750 gold, like I just don't understand why people think it's good, because I like when you play the game, you build them and it always feels bad. It always feels like you did something wrong. So I wonder why the community was like, these are really good. Is it just because it's new? Because I never felt like it always just felt like the wrong thing to build. Like you look at also the price of the boots and you're like, boots, and then you look at it, it's like, yeah, this shit costs 1800 gold, or like fucking 1750 gold. Like that is not fucking worth it. 2000 gold for boots, like hell no, you don't want to be spending that much. So it's very strange how people decided that it was OP. I feel like it's one of those things where people didn't really know how to feel, and then like the first people that made the Reddit threads were like, this is super fucking OP, and then everyone's like, yeah, it's OP, and they don't really they feel like afraid to say anything else, because yeah, you say anything else, then people just say that you don't know how to play the game.
Yeah. What is something that you would keep then about this season's changes, Dom?
I think that the feats in general, like the idea of getting like some small upgrade. Like I think the 5% movement speed, that's not what I'm talking about with feats of strength. I'm talking about like actually buying the boots, but like the 5% movement speed, if you get like, turrets and objectives, make people want to play. It's something that's kind of placebo in a way, but it makes people want to play more for like the objectives and play the game the proper way. I think that that's kind of nice. It means that people are thinking about the game in the right way. They've kind of just made players want to win more, I guess, in a way.
Do you feel like just the old style of just sitting back and scaling is gone? Like even if, let's say, they retune 80 carries a little bit but keep everything else the same, because 80 carries are so like utility right now. Is it gone because of feats of strength? Like you just can't play a scaling comp as conveniently anymore?
I don't think so. I think you can still like like Dom and I have both been saying, really. I don't think the boots are so OP that if you end up losing the feats of strength, it's like game's over, right? It's just kind of a weird hurdle that maybe you have to deal with, and I think eventually, especially at pro level, I hope players are just going to kind of recognize, yeah, it's not worth investing the gold until we are quite literally 5 items, right? In most cases, so I think it's not really something that kills like scaling or anything like that. I think it's just kind of another consideration of like, hey, are we going to be comfortable giving up all of these objectives? Is that something like, are we going to actually have a strategy to maybe try and get them, like at best? And I just think because of the way that they're implemented right now, it's not really the worst thing in the world. I think if they ever take a pass at the feat system and like actually give maybe individual rewards for, for each feat, then maybe, depending on what those rewards end up being, right, in a hypothetical, that's where like things maybe get funky. But otherwise, no, I don't think it kills like, you know, passive play.
Dumb.
Yeah, I don't think that that would be what kills passive play. I think that for the most part, you played the game the same way that you did before. I don't think that there was that many decisions that were correct about the game before, like correct things to do, like good rotations, good swaps for grubs, like trading turrets. Like there's very few times where you're actually going to do anything different in the game objectively, like in order to try to like get the feats of strength. You're going to make the same exact decisions you did last time. So I don't think that it should be that harder. I think that much harder. I think the only thing was scaling past a certain point might be a little bit more difficult. So champions that are really conditional, like Smolder, who needed to hit 225. Now that Otacon's in the game, maybe that becomes harder because before you could kind of stall it out to like fourth Drake, which would be around like 24 minutes, 25 minutes. Sometimes it would take Smolder that long to have his stacks. Maybe that's harder because now if they force a fight on Otacon, you could just lose the whole game.
You know, I'm surprised that, and I'll just bring it up just because I find it interesting. Neither one of you brought up Fearless Draft. No Fearless Draft? Like, what are our initial thoughts about it, and what do you expect out of it later on?
I hated Fearless Draft last year, but it was because I think the only Fearless Draft that we had was like the half-assed one, where it's like once you pick on one side, you can't pick it, and then, you know, all that really happens in that application is you just see the comps flipped. I think hard Fearless is actually pretty nice. And I think we've already started to see, you know, again, certain teams kind of pull out weird stuff when you get to sort of game 4, maybe a game 5 eventually. And even I think the LNG game 1, to bring up that series again, LNG TT game 1, they picked like a really weird comp, I think, in order to like have more potential options, or like just kind of to catch TT off guard of like a, hey, we've practiced weird shit, and now, I mean, not that you were going to play it, but now the pool kind of remains slightly more open maybe for like later games. So I like this version of Fearless. Last year I was a hater of the soft Fearless, but I think hard Fearless is a nice kind of change of pace.
All right, Dom. What do you make of Fearless so far?
I mean, I think that Fearless is good. I personally think that one of the biggest problems with Fearless last year in the LPL is not only was it soft Fearless, so teams would reverse comps, but also it was just a 3-game, it was just a best of 3, right? So like
Yeah.
you never actually got to see like a game 4, game 5, which is where Fearless gets interesting. You see a game 5, 40 champions are banned, 10 more, then you're down to like, okay, we're down to some new shit. We're gonna see more old school comps. Like maybe you get to see more personality from the teams or what they really value, because a lot of times teams won't play necessarily directly to their strengths because they care more about just playing what's OP, and like they'd rather play things that are strong in the game rather than things that they are good at, right? So I think that we get to see like a little bit more of maybe like pocket picks and things like that come out later on in the draft, which should be nice because I think that's what a lot of people want, you know, in metas where, you know, Knight Silas isn't good, or like let's say Chovius Corki isn't good or something like that, or, you know, Canyon Nidalee is not good. You get to see them actually play it at a point because you remove all the champions that are actually OP and suddenly they become a lot more viable. I think that you get to see like more of you should theoretically get to see more of the individual really nice picks that certain players have become famous for over the years.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how Fearless all plays on out, especially over in the LPL. One more shout out to them and this unique thing they're doing. The 1v1 thing, although it takes a lot of time to set up and get it going, it's fun. Like 1v1 straight up in that lane, could be anyone. We got to see a Teemo get pulled on out. Very interesting that players will think about that a little bit more to get the advantage in their best of 5s. So, all right, those are the changes that we want to keep. Let us know in the comments below which ones you want to see throughout the season. All right. Well, before we get to our next segment where we're ranking some of the changes in the season, we got to remind you about one of our friends that help Power Spike power throughout the year. Our friends at AG1 have returned and are supporting the show. Thanks to our friends over at AG1. It is the drink that has helped me get myself on point with my resolutions here for January 2025. They're hard to maintain, but AG1 is the easiest thing I can do for my health. Again, it has helped me so much go consistently. Yes, that's right. Am I talking about bowel health? I am. I'm talking about how it is just so much easier to use the restroom using AG1. It has a lot of probiotics, make sure everything inside has been really good for my gut health. Dom uses it as well, enjoys the taste of it as well. You're not used to having it from a drink that looks quote unquote healthy.
Yep, absolutely. And I have a lot of AG1. I get these like monster packages. So I've been having it. My girlfriend's been having it. And it's a nice way to start your morning. It's just something that makes your body feel like awake. It's just a good way to just wake up, you drink it, you feel refreshed. Have it. I put it with some cold water, and that's probably just like the best way to enjoy AG1. I think it's just something that you can use to kickstart your day and make yourself feel ready. It also as dGon says, when it comes to like your first meal, I feel like my digestion is so much better with AG1 on that first meal, where normally that's the tricky one right when you wake up. So yeah, I've been enjoying using it.
Yeah. Energy, digestive regularity, immune support, and even a healthy mood. AG1 can help you be ready to take on what 2025 has in store for you. So this year, try AG1 for yourself. It's a perfect time to start a new healthy habit. That's why we've been partnered with AG1. So we are offering new subscribers a free $76 gift when you sign up. You'll get a welcome kit, a bottle of D3K2, and 5 free travel packs in your first box. So check on out drinkag1.com/LFNlegends to get this offer. That's drinkag1.com/LFNlegends to start your new year on a healthier note. Thanks to our friends over at AG1. We'll get Jamada hooked up in just no time. Again, thanks to our friends over at AG1. Next up, new segment, but it kind of explains itself here. It's time for Rank It, because we had lots of different moves that happened in the LoL esports space. So we're going to consolidate it down to our top 3. What were the top 3 roster moves for this season for the 3 of us? Which ones jump out the most? So for this one, Dom, we'll start with you. What were your top 3 roster moves this off season? And
Okay.
you can't include the Ruddy guy. That doesn't count. Obviously,
Okay.
having 2 of the greatest European players of all time play in your organization is crazy, but that doesn't count.
Okay, what about Jamada to power spike? Can we include that? Or
Oh wow.
okay,
that is.
Jamada to power
okay.
spike. Let's go.
I mean, I
Um,
was gonna go more like that's kind of a big loss for us, but that's okay. That's
Okay.
the
Okay.
positive
Cheers.
side of
No,
that.
no, cheers. I see where I am now. All right. Cool.
I would say Doran to T1. That's got to be my favorite roster move. That's got to be my. Are we saying my favorite? I'm ranking my favorite roster moves, right?
All right. The script says, what are the top 3 roster changes? So top 3 could be whatever you want it to be. This is kind of like the same guideline they give when we have to vote for LCK Cup. They don't, or LCK Awards. They don't tell you what it is.
Well,
They just say,
I've become
for your
very
top
Korea
3.
pilled over the last year, and I just believe that the best roster who won Worlds last year just has the 5 best players. So Doran to T1, he must be just the best. I mean, if T1's getting him, that means that like T1, they call the shots in that league, so they must really believe in him. So I think we're gonna get great things out of Doran this year. I can't wait to watch him play. I'm extremely excited to see what he does to T1. I mean, for T1.
Actually, the way that we should do this is that we should go one at a time. Otherwise, we might all have the same one. So, Dom, I've ruined your first pick, but that is your first pick. Your first pick was Doran to T1. Jamada, you could go next. What is the next biggest roster move?
I mean,
That's happening.
I'm rocking with JoJo over to Mad Koi, or I guess they're just known as Koi now.
Yeah.
Multitude of different reasons. I'm just happy we took him off you guys, right? The NA guys. For me, watching all of the NA heads be extremely sad that they lost one of their best individual talents that have been produced from the region for the last couple of years just brings me so much joy. It rekindles a little bit of that NA versus EU kind of rivalry, and also because we've just not had that happen before. Right? It's the first time we've had like a major player move over from NA to EU. So I think generally good for EU, good for Jojo, and I think weirdly because of that and how Koi have this weird and like the Mad brand as a whole has had this weird thing of being able to crack into like top 3 and make it to international so frequently. Theoretically, with Jojo, who you know has a pretty okay track record, they should probably be like top 3 in LEC. Emphasis on should be, based on how they played domestically outside of all of spring, all of summer except for the last day, and then season finals. So yeah, hopefully they're a little bit more consistent, and we actually have like another cool third team in the LEC, because it has been getting a little bit boring seeing it mostly be G2 plus whoever the seasonal rival happens to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think they can improve their win rate from like 40% from last year to maybe like 45, 50 maybe. That's good enough for Worlds and LEC. So
Yeah,
I think they can get 50% win rate. I believe in them.
Yeah, that is a huge move. That was one of the ones on my list, but I thought I was gonna get to do that one because it was lower on the list, but I guess it's not. I'm gonna go with another North American talent leaving, and to me, this is just because I just want to see how good this player is. Berserker over to the Freaks, to the now DN Freaks, which is a automobile part company. The jokes write themselves. The team
Oh yeah, their
acronym
parts
is
are right.
BNF. Yep, exactly. Yes. So Berserker, multi MVP over at LCS, never played in the LCK Tier 1, right? Moved on over from T1. I guess it's Academy. Yeah, Academy. So the Tier 3 T1 squad, way back in the day, joined Cloud9, took over the league, had a bit of a dip last split again with Cloud9. However, the JoJo stuff, the things that were happening in the league, the things that are happening in the team, the coaching stuff, we've covered a lot of it throughout of all of last year. He's now in Korea, has a team around him. And small anecdote, I saw him during the opening event because he got drafted by Gumayushi to join for that Noxus event. And I saw him, he saw me, and I said, "안녕하세요." And he went, "안녕하세요." I've never heard Berserker's Korean voice in my life. He always speaks English. He has like that fun kind of like deeper voice trolling around, but it was like business. He had a business ass Korean voice. It was cool as fuck, and I'm really excited to see what he does this year in the LCK. All right, Dom, your turn.
Yeah, my next roster change, I'm gonna go with, I think just a hype one. It's not necessarily top, but I think it's hype. I want to see. It kind of goes in 2 parts. We'll go with Rookie to IG. I like just him being back on his team. I mean, he was the centerpiece of IG for the longest time. So seeing Rookie go back to IG, I mean, he is one of the greatest players of all time. Definitely like a top 10 player of all time. World champion. And just seeing him in the IG jersey again, it just seems right. And I like that he has a squad around him that gives him a chance to win. I think that he's a player that has been inted maybe more than any other player. I think his last few years haven't been as good as previously, but this guy was an absolute monster for the longest time. So I like seeing him on a team where he has a chance to win again.
I think he's got a chance to win with the Shy as his top lane.
By win, I mean like
you've got a temperature running. What's going on?
I think he has a chance, like not win the split, but like chance to like win games and like actually like go to Worlds or something.
Sure,
like, he could be on a winning team now.
I can get behind that. I don't mind the IG roster as it lands, though. Yeah, the Shy is going to be living in permanent scrutiny for me forever. I think for me, gosh, I'm gonna pick. I think it's probably probably very low down on the list one, but for me, Scout going to JDG, I think is probably a very low down one. Mostly because of the roster around him and how LNG was kind of functioning for the last 3-4 splits with him in the team. I think for Scout, this roster might allow him to have more freedom than how he felt on LNG, where he was kind of jailed as. I know the narrative that we were kind of spinning on the English broadcast was he was kind of the everything for LNG, right? He was the initiator, the shot caller, the IGL. the guy that you can rely on to scale. Like he was kind of the everything bag, but I think he's got enough solid pieces on this JDG lineup, which we still haven't seen play. We still got to wait to probably, almost reinvent himself in a way. Because I feel like, again, he's not really had the best team around him for at the very least the last two splits to really kind of be an individual as opposed to having to constantly play for his team, which is when I feel like Scout kind of gets to show off the most.
I think a big question mark for that is Pays. Is Pays that guy to allow him? Because Pays can be the cleanup guy, but I don't know if Pays is the guy. This is asking Pays to grow up, be like, all right, Pays, you're on your own. You got to do your own job now. And that's a big question for a guy moving into the league away from his original organization and, on a team that expects greatness, like right off the jump in JDG. So I feel like it's a big question there for Scout. Speaking of that, my then move there is a duo move. I think it's Ruler coming back to the LCK, back to his original team over on Gen G, as well as this is the part that no one's really talking about. Duro moving from BFX, as they are now known, BFX to Gen G as well, to make that duo on Gen G. They are expected to jump right on in. Ruler's back on home. You re-sign the whole top side of the map. Church of Chovy's back in session. Those two getting along and going at the jump is very interesting, because I felt like Ruler could have just picked anyone to play with other than Keria and maybe Delight. Other than those two, he could have gotten Barrel or someone else to go play with him, but instead he's picking up someone he's never played with before back on home. So I feel like that's a huge move and risk. So interested for that one. All right, Dom, go ahead. Your last one.
I mean, my last one, I guess we should just throw it out there, is Ruler to Gen G. Like that is a crazy one to think about him going back home, kind of similar to Rookie, but also just that he has that level of, just he has that level of respect in Korea that leaves Gen G. There's still a team that, in my mind, should be the best team in LCK, if not top two. And even after last year, where he wasn't playing super well on JDG at a lot of points, the fact that he could just go back, walk back into a team that had been winning in LCK and been dominant just shows how good people still think Ruler is. And I think he's going to be really good on that team, because the game is so structured at Gen G that Ruler only really needs to be good at what he has been good at his whole career, which is like farming, clean up AD carry. He's not the type of guy that gets caught. He plays team fights mechanically super well every single time. I think he's going to be just a huge part of that team's success. And I think that's what makes them like the front runner to win LCK and the front runner to win Worlds this year.
Dang. Yeah. I think that one was too big not to hit twice. I mean, the other side of it. All right. Yeah. Jamada, your last one.
I'm going to bring the level down and also be a little bit greedy because it's kind of a two-ish parter. Fnatic bot lane, right? Upset and Mickey.
Okay.
I think for me, I don't know. I kind of feel like Mickey was, I don't want to say done a bit dirty, but to me, if I was G2, I'm probably only losing Yike and not Mickey. Dropping both at the same time, I think, is kind of crazy. So now that they're on Fnatic, who I think have a significantly more, comparatively to previous splits at least, stable top side, and I think, to me, bringing in bringing in Mickey, who will now have a jungler who, from what I understand, is obviously Rezok is very outspoken. He's very, very vocal. Not that Mickey isn't vocal, but it felt like on G2, he didn't necessarily want to be a complete IGL. Well, Fnatic already have an in-game leader, an in-game shot caller through Rezok by the sounds and looks of it. So should be fine in that system. And I think it gives Fnatic realistically an opportunity in Europe to actually win a split for the first time in a goddamn long time, because G2 having lost jungle and support at the same time, no matter how much you rate the coaching and the systems of G2, as Dom will tell you as the old head jungler here, jungle support, that's normally like that's the beating engine of most competitive teams when it comes to comms and team structure. So it's going to take time for G2 to recoup that specific system with Skumon as a rookie and Labrov as well. So I think Upset and Mickey might actually give Fnatic, at the very least in winter, an opportunity to win a bloody split for the first time in a long time. So I think it's a pretty damn important roster move from both of them in the LEC.
Yeah. Those are good points. I didn't really think about that one. And again, there are we had to pick 3, and there are so many that have happened. So I'll cheat and just take the biggest one of them all. It's the opposite of what Dom started with. This is how we'll end it.
Yeah.
Because Dom said Gen G is the favorite, I disagree because I feel like Hanwha Life Esports is the favorite, adding in a world-class top laner in Zeus over to them. It's just, it's weird to see, it's weird to watch. He's got the shaved head because he had to go serve some time, in the military or do his military time. But I mean, that team got better. It just feels like that team got better, and now they have multiple lanes to play through. And not even just like can hold their own, but they can play through the top lane now, which is pretty important because if maybe Viper's efficacy will drop based on the current meta, they've got the only other guy that can tussle with Bin in the world, and they're the reigning LCK champ. So the added drama behind it as well, the agent thing, we wanted to resign him, we didn't. To quash all the drama, Keria and Zeus were sitting together like in the cafeteria before they were doing the matches. So the players are cool between each other, but once they get onto the Rift, these organizations are going to have a heck of a time, T1 and Hanwha Life against each other. And I feel like it's all because the transfer Zeus moving to Hanwha Life, doing the unthinkable, breaking up the ZOFGK, the Zofgk. Because he wanted the bag and now has the opportunity to play for LCK championships.
Has to be one of the worst acronyms of all time, or whatever you want to fucking call it. ZOFGK. Why the fuck did that catch on? Like that was. They never. I feel like that never happened with old T1 lineups. Like, did anyone call like them fucking, what was it? IBFPP? No, I don't think I ever heard that before in my life. So when did that start? When did the ZOFGK stuff even start?
No, I mean, shout outs again to the 100 Acre Woods bot lane with Piglet and Pumandu. That was Doa and Monty way back in the day.
Not shout out to them. Definitely no shout out to them.
Okay, well, I already did it. It's too late. Those were some of our roster moves. Obviously, not all of them. Someone in the chat already saying Tarzan to anyone's legend. That was a huge one, I think, as well. Someone threw out Rich coming back to LCK. Whatever. He played well in the show match. I think there's one more in LPL that I feel like I'm forgetting here, Dom, that really stuck out. I can't remember, but
I mean, there's like Tarzan to AL, which is a big one. There's Kanavi to top esports.
That one. It was Kanavi to top. That was the one that was in my head that slipped my mind. Let us know which ones are the biggest ones that we didn't cover in the comments below, and we'll hop on in there and give you your props if we think they're good. So, all right, that was Rank It. One more ad read for you as we have 2 more segments left in the day, and this is from our friends over at Raycon. Everyone says their 2025 is going to be different, and it will, for better or for worse. And the world will change whether you want to make a big resolution or not. So maybe just keep it simple and say you'll hit the gym once and take it from there, or you'll call your mom more, or you can plan a big trip and go on even more trips outside of the world to clear your head. All those things are pretty doable, and they're way easier to do when you bring the Raycon Everyday Earbuds. That's right. The Raycon Everyday Earbuds are the perfect gym buddy, coworker, phone call companion, offering premium audio that goes with you everywhere that you go. And the latest model is better than ever with a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that allows you to pair 2 devices at once. These things were so good that I lost them in an Uber here in Korea, and I ordered a new pair when I went back to the States. They are awesome. They have multiple different earbuds to fit on in. I've tested them against multiple different headphones, and they sound super clear to the friends, especially when it was windy. I remember doing that earlier. These earbuds also come with active noise cancellation, which is often difficult to find at an accessible price point, but not with Raycon, which starts at just half the price than other premium audio brands. And although 2025 isn't guaranteed to be easy, Raycon's return policy is. It's a 30-day happiness guarantee, no questions asked. So get yourself 15% off site-wide at buyraycon.com/powerspike. That's 15% off at buyraycon.com/powerspike. Buyraycon.com/powerspike. This is, again, we use all the products, but this one, you saw it just right here. I have it ready to go because I use them all the time. They were charging and I had to take them off the charger. Thanks to our friends over at Raycon. All right, 2 more segments. It's future telling time, and time to bring in the NostraDOMus. We've got ourselves multiple different international events and Worlds, which is also an international event. So let's predict the future. We'll keep this one in our back pocket and remember it. NostraDOMus, it's time to tell us who wins First Stand, who wins MSI, and who wins Worlds. 3 different teams, 3 different tournaments. Will it be the same team? Let's find out together. NostraDOMus, everyone. The question has been asked, NostraDOMus. What do you think? Where do you take us?
NIP wins all of them. My goats, they're gonna win everything. NIP, doing B, he's back. He's gonna shock all the teams. Shanji, Aki are gonna be lifting all 3 trophies. They're winning everything this year. My fucking goats. OMG is so fucking back. The spirit of OMG lives on. That's all I have to say about that.
This has been NostraDOMus. Thank you so much to NostraDOMus for showing up and making that one easy. Jamada, any closing thoughts on this outrageous pick that has been clipped?
I'm there. No, look, I loved OMG back in 2020. Was it 3 or 2? It was 2, right?
3.
So was it 3? Yeah, it was 3. You're right. So look, seeing a majority of this roster back plus Doinby, I'm here. I'm ready for it. And leave, assuming he decides to be the one that we remember for being the cool, like, pop out and run them all down EDG leave. This is like an almost serious roster, so I'm there for it. Yeah, all 3 internationals, go. I'm supporting.
Okay, nice. Yeah, pre-prostitution leave was the goat.
Yeah,
I gotta say, like,
before all the social media accounts, right? Before all of my jungler is fucking awful. He was pretty damn good.
Yep.
All right, that has been NostraDOMus. We'll clip it and save it when we get to the international events. I'm sure NIP will be the one team that is represented over in those single team tournaments from each region. All right, to close it on off, no, all jokes aside, it's time for the Galaxy Brain Club. It is, what are the top 2 teams in every major region? We'll use top 2 to kind of cover our bases because the international events will allow to, MSI will allow to, but for now, First Stand is 1, and then Worlds is dependent on how the teams do over at MSI. So let's get to it. The Galaxy Brain Club, top teams in every region. All right. Let's talk some EU. We haven't really talked too much EU except the couple of transfers here that Jamada said. So why don't we start there? Dom, you are swearing off of the EU crack pipe this time. It'll be a little bit less this year. So while it's still fresh and we got the changes, before anything changes, we have to do, deep dive into analysis. What do you got here for us in the LEC?
I mean, it's just got to be G2 Fnatic, right? Like, I mean, Fnatic upgraded their roster, in my opinion. I think that they'll still be a top 2 team. I think G2, even though I can see Fnatic winning now, I don't think G2 is just going to be like falling lower than 2. So I still have G2 Fnatic as the kings of the region. It's a safe pick, but I just don't think the other teams have the firepower to get up there and beat those teams.
All right, Jamada.
Yeah, unfortunately, my opinion's kind of the same. I think that the roster moves have given Fnatic an opportunity to win in winter. My expectation is G2 just scale and get better throughout the year once Skumond and Labrov get comfortable with the rest of the roster. So it's kind of Fnatic G2. I think if I was to throw like a potential maybe spanner in the works, it's kind of just coy. I feel like just because again the flukiness of this roster and having the ability to just upset expectations is a bit frustrating, to be honest, because they always seem to knock out another good compare when it comes to like Worlds time. But I would say probably my third, if it wasn't going to be, G2. If G2 like trip really hard and they don't come second, then I think it would probably be Koi.
Okay, so just to play devil's advocate here, because it's a little, that was a little samey here. We're betting on a newish G2 roster, a couple of young guys. We're hoping that the team that flukes their way into wins and Movistar Koi are kind of okay. The last time that we saw upset on Fnatic was not great. There was a reason why they got rid of Mickey X. I feel like we're leaving out the hype of the blue wall of Karmine Corp, bringing on in hype to the list. We've been waiting for him for such a long time. dGon unleashed. Yes, a couple of those like big oopsies, and I remember VOD reviewing and being like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing, but that's no longer it. Yike has international experience that it brings on in. Kana, did you see him walk the way that he was embraced with the fans when they did our League of Our Own or whatever it was? He's the guy that they can build upon here, which is why they've re-signed him. I feel like Karmine Corp. I'm just trying to ingratiate myself with the Karmine Corp fans. This is when Dom zones out and just ignores me until I'm done with the segment.
Well, the question is, do you speak French, dGon? Because if you don't speak French, that's it. Like you can't do it.
That also means I can't read.
They won't bring you in.
Yeah, I can't read the comments that they say at me either. So it does.
And they're always positive.
Always.
No,
always.
They try to translate it to English. It's extremely broken, and when you read it, it's like I just get the sense of like, yeah, you hate me or something. But yeah, I mean they'll come for you. Don't worry. They'll type in enough English that you'll understand what they mean.
All right. Well, we'll see. Also, Giant X, just a quick shout out to Giant X because I love Gihoto, and he always does things when teams don't, or when the expectations are low. And he does get Noah and June to hop on in there with him. He does have familiarity with Closer. That's an interesting roster. Not saying they're going to do anything, but just there's a little bit there to at least shout out a couple of teams over in Europe. Now, let's move from there over to the other squad in the West, or the other league in the West. The LTA, the first time that we've said the acronym on our show. League of the Americas, North and South. Mark Z came on out and made his commissioner speech about how the season is going to go. And they've got North Split 1, South Split 1, plus the playoffs and the regional championship, plus promotion at the end because they've got the guest slot in there. They're doing things over in the LTA. How do we see it playing on out? And now we have to cover both North and South, which is, I guess, a lot of league to watch here. Let's start with the North because that's the one I'm the most familiar with. Dom, how do you see this one playing out here?
I think that it's going to be really different because of the speed of everything. I think LTA North, if you don't know how the schedule works, it's like first couple weeks you get a few match days, and then boom, like you're just in the cross regional competition. So I think there's going to be a lot of like RNG in the first split. I still think that TL should probably be the favorites domestically. They didn't have a good Worlds. They ended up kind of choking finals, but I think that they were playing at the highest level during most of last year. So I still think TL will be a top dog. But yeah, we have to see how some of the other teams come in. I want to see the level of the LA team Lion joining, because like Audie's going to be playing in LCS. Is that team going to be like a middle of the pack team, or are they going to be straight at the bottom? I think Disguised is going to be pretty tough. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams. Shopify is a pretty interesting lineup, so we have to kind of like place all the teams. I'm also interested to see where 100 Thieves places, because they were top 3 obviously and ended up going to Worlds, but I feel like this year is going to really test if they're frauds or not. So there's a lot to see in the LTA. And yeah, I mean, there's some hype teams that are joining. Disguised obviously has a huge brand behind it, and then on the other side of things, you have like Dignitas with Surdy and Shaden playing. So that's going to be something also fun to watch. It's like 2 players that are perma fighting over rank 1. Really good mechanical team. Are they going to be able to, structure games and win pro games versus players that have done it for years? Yeah, we have to see.
Yeah. I like the Leon shout out, especially because you've got Saint and Henna coming on in. Interesting that the Korean mid laners that have come on in were the ones behind Showmaker and behind Zeka in Loki and in Saint, who are joining Quid, who was behind who was Quid behind back in the day? Oh no, he was on Genji. Yeah, see, Quid was on Genji Academy. He was behind Chovy. So you have all these players that have spent a decent amount of time behind great all-star mid laners in LCK, now finding an opportunity on here. How do you see this one playing out, Jamada?
I mean, for me, NA kind of remains a bit of an alien region to me, which I'm only now getting back into. But that said, I'm really interested in FlyQuest story. I think how things developed at Worlds for them was kind of interesting. Yes, to my understanding, and like Dom's also just kind of reaffirmed to me, Team Liquid are kind of just domestically the best team, right? Choke at Worlds, Super Minions, ha ha ha. But I really want to know if that run at Worlds actually had any kind of impact in the development for FlyQuest, and if it has kind of leveled them up, given them the kind of experience they need to come back domestically and, you know, look like a king, right? Really, really have a successful year domestically, as opposed to kind of, you know, the finals. Everyone that I asked after the finals happened was like, yeah, it was kind of a fluke. Team Liquid should have just won. No one was really supposed to see FlyQuest like be competitive, but obviously they were. So having their series against Genji, having the pretty damn good series against HLE as well in the Swiss stage, it kind of makes me wonder if they're going to look leveled up coming back off of a really, really successful Worlds run, even if it was only top 8. But for NA and for the West in general, like a top 8 and a good showing against Genji is a really successful Worlds.
Yeah, just feels like a solid answer there with what most of majority that aren't in NA are looking at. It's Team Liquid and FlyQuest. How are they going to do? If you wanted individuals, I'll throw out some names. I'm excited for. I'm maybe not excited. Just interested. I'm interested in how Scary Jerry's going to do over in Disguised, because he was at Maryville for a long time, was handpicked there, has gone through the fires, now gets his opportunity over at the LTA. How's Sniper going to do? He's no longer a rookie. He can't keep making these boneheaded mistakes, but amazing 1v1 plays. How is Loki going to do as he transitions over at Cloud9, a high profile position? Seos is the first Brazilian player to play on a North American team, I believe. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty sure he's the first Brazilian player to play on a North American team. So he's got paired up with MVP candidate B-Voy and the CLG spirit of Shopify Rebellion, just getting the good boys together in Palafox contracts and Fudge. So a lot of individuals that I think have opportunities to prove themselves one more time. Oh, and yeah, other shout out from Collegiate, but also in like FlyQuest Academy jail was Surdy getting his opportunity with Dignitas. So a lot of individuals to look out for there. And then LTA South. All right, so LTA South, a lot of CB LOL squads there, but some of the LAS Latin America South squads joining, with Isuris Istral joining. Leviathan was a big proponent over in Valorant. A lot of Valorant looking logos here to me with Furia, Leviathan, Loud, but still, they are now part of the Americas. How do you see this one shaking out, Dom? How much do we know about it, Dom?
How much do I know about it? Well,
Yeah,
about
it's okay if not.
the new teams that have joined, I don't really know much about. I watched extremely low amounts. I think I watched one series all last year of LLA. So not really sure about them. In terms of the other teams that have stayed, I'm pretty interested to see how the rosters shape up. I mean, a lot of them haven't been like officially announced. One player I'm looking forward to is Trimby supposedly being on Vivo Keed. That's going to be kind of hype because, you know, Trimby was a player that a couple years ago he was winning a championship at LEC, and he was somebody that was considered a super top tier talent for the longest time. Obviously had a fall from grace, but should still be very good for this region. And yeah, like the Loud team is going to kind of be changing a bit. Winsome is supposed to be playing on that team. And their jungler Croc, who had been playing there for a long time, he went to Worlds multiple times. He was the guy that started without items that one time, if you guys remember him. Yeah, he's no longer on Loud, and he was a huge player there. In terms of the Isra slot, names people might know. Burden, who used to be in LCK. You know, he was this really hype player behind on Gen G. He was behind, I believe, Rascal. Yeah, Rascal back in the day.
Woo.
Ended up playing last year for LGD in the LPL. We watched him a lot. And now he's playing with Jose Diodo over in LTA South. So I'm actually pretty excited to see those teams play, just the players that I've seen in other regions for a while. And then the last person I want to shout out here is, and I assume that Teton, it's not officially up, but I assume that Teton is still going to be playing for Pain. So, you know, Pain has similar roster. They should be good. Last person I want to bring up is Thinkard, who's the coach of that energy.
Yeah.
That energy team that ended up winning LCS in 2023. He's now a coach for Furia. So we've got like a lot more influence from, you know, the Western European scene. Like a lot more players are coming to the Brazilian region. So I'm excited to see how they play. Like, I think it's going to be really fun to watch. So it should be hype.
Yeah, just going through that roster, the loud roster one more time. 3 Koreans on it, with Croc being left out. Wiz comes on in. You have Rout and Winsome. Remember, Winsome counts as a North American player because he had dual residency and he selected North America as his residency. So Robo and Tinones on a primarily Korean roster with, it looks like Korean coaches, or I mean, Brazilian coaches. So that one is going to be interesting. Also, shout outs to Coach Seal, who was part of the EG movement way back in the day when EG was doing well and kind of getting stuff done there. He's been tweeting a lot, posting a lot, spent time over at Golden Guardians as well. So shout outs to what he's been doing over with Vivo Keyed Stars, and now has Trimby behind him. All right. Jamada, any final thoughts on Latin America South?
No, I'm not super clued in. I'm very interested to see how Trimby does, like Dom said, simply because I think it sucked to lose Trimby, you know, from the LEC. But I'm happy he's at the very least on a team, and to me at least, he seems moderately okay and happy with, you know, being in Latin America South or LTA South for now.
LTA South. Sorry.
LTA South.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's cool. And then yeah, Pain Gaming, because they kind of won me over. A lot of very strong characters we got to see over during the Worlds period. So I'm definitely going to be tracking mostly Trimby, and also like you called out Seal. Exactly, right?
Hey.
Hey, like that's putting him for conversation, some of the best bot lanes, you know, to ever do it. So yeah, for me, Pain, Trimby, those are the two kind of major things I'm tracking down there.
That's right. Shout outs to all the Brazilian fans that consistently remind me that me and Titan look alike.
Yep. Wait, who do I look like? People say I look like El Yoya's crackhead uncle. That's what they tell me.
Is that? Let me pull up El Yoya real quick. I mean,
that's the one that my chat says, is that I look like El Yoya's like father or something.
They're right. Father. They're so right. I never made the connection till now. Till that came out of your mouth.
I mean, I have Spanish blood, so
yeah, I can see it. Yeah, you might have to get a test or something. You sure you're not related? Like, this is
maybe, bro.
Side by side.
Maybe
he was born in 2000. Okay, I was 10 years old. All right, I can't be his father. Maybe his I don't have any brothers or sisters that I know of. Maybe his uncle. Who knows?
If you got some vitamin C, I would definitely agree. Like, I see it, man. Yeah, but right now,
I can't.
You mad fair skin. You mad fair skin.
He's really pale as well, bro.
He's really he's really pale.
Look at Leaguepedia. Leaguepedia, he looks tan as fuck.
Look,
not tan as fuck, but he looks tan. Like a little tan.
I've sat with El Yoyo a good couple of times. He is quite pale. I think if you're any pictures you're seeing are either doctored or like really good makeup days. So I'm there. I think him and Dom actually do look quite alike.
His hair is a little bit in front of his face, so maybe that's like changing the tint of his face. All right. That was LTA and LEC. Let's move on over to the LPL, where you got to pick two. Only two. Now, I know you did your ranking system earlier, Dom, but you can also adjust for groups and group placement. I'm not sure if that changes anything here, but who are your top two squads for the LPL?
top 2 squads for the LPL might be controversial. I might be Demacia Cup pilled, but I think top 2. It's going to be really hard because I don't know how the fuck NIP is going to end up making it to first stand without winning the split. We'll have to see how that works for the NostraDOMus prediction. But I think it will be BLG and anyone's legend.
Yeah. All right.
I'm a
Nostradamus,
believer in AL. I'm a believer in Tarzan. Tarzan makes LPL teams fucking good domestically. Like, this guy is a machine when it comes to domestic play. And I think especially in Fearless Draft, I think Tarzan is completely unleashed because he has the biggest champion pool out of everyone. We got to see it a little bit in Demacia Cup. Like, you get a couple bans and then suddenly he pulls out things like the Zac. Like, if they play, there's so many comps where one jungle champion can completely alter it. We saw it at Worlds when he picked the Morgana into Vi and it completely fucked Dom1 in that game, completely neutered them. He was also somebody who was really good at historically saving his pick until last because he had these specialty picks, like when people would play immobile carries, he'd play Zac. That was something he did in the LPL. His Nidalee is really good. He can just play everything. So I feel like this format is actually, we're going to see some prime Tarzan where he is just smurfing on everyone, bro. He's going to show why he's rank 1.
Damn. Yeah, I feel like the Demacia Cup hype is real. I heard the same thing on the LPL English broadcast. I think it was Alk Battery that said that too. What do you make of it here, Jamada?
I'm trying to make my mind up because I think the foregone conclusion is BLG first, right? That's
Sure.
where everyone's head is at. I like this call for AL. I also, because you didn't touch on it, Tarbe's still with AL, right? So every roster that Tarbe touches, significantly better strategy-wise, draft-wise. So with Fearless Draft, I think that's also another aspect you have to think about. Tarbe's general influence on his rosters has been incredible. I think if not AL, I would either lean on, you know what, maybe I put some stock in JDG. I don't know. Something in my head is telling me JDG are just going to come back and be second again.
I think they're going to be shit. I don't know. I have no hope.
I know, but I want to believe. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to believe that this roster is going to come together and be nice, but I think they're probably like a third or a fourth, like at best. And even then, you look at other rosters, like the Weibo rosters kind of remained almost the same. They brought in Tien and was it Hong, right? Off the top of my head. So that's different. It depends on how much you liked Hong on LNG, right? But otherwise, I'm kind of in the same boat with AL. I think if it's not AL, though, I would either put stock in JDG because I want to be a believer. And I suppose top esports, right? Kanavi in over Tien. I feel like a lot of people have always kind of, at least recently, Tien just kind of is what he is, right? He doesn't necessarily perform well at the highest stake positions. I feel like you don't necessarily have the same mental block out of Kanavi that you seem to get out of Tien, right? So top esports, probably the other big or biggest bet for me. I'll probably say BLG top esports, then AL for me.
So are we not worried at all? Nah, maybe not worried is the right word, but the Jun and Wei kind of like swapsies that was happening between BLG, including who they decided to go with in the finals, like, does that not weigh into anything?
Nah, not really. I mean, I think sometimes you go through a tournament and things just might be working differently, right? In scrims or just in conversations. And if that's the call BLG made, that's the call BLG made, right? And I don't think Wei had a poor showing domestically. It just seemed like they weren't clicking at Worlds, and they felt like Shun was the correct answer.
He ran the league domestically. He looked insane domestically. I mean, they shit on everyone. Last split, it was just like the 3-0 finals. I mean, there was a reason it was the lowest watch finals of like my entire time in LPL. Like, people just showed up. You just know that BLG was just functioning so well. Winning. They had domestically, they had no flaws because they were like the best macro team and they were the best players individually. So it was just like, who can touch them? Like no one could do anything to them. So yeah, this is what it is.
All right. So, Dom, you had BLG, AL, Jamada, you had BLG top. Was that what it was? All right. Those are good. Again, you have multiple different angles that I think you can go with here with LPL. So that I feel like that's a fun league. I think over in the LCK, as we go to our final region here that we're going to cover, it's less options. I feel like you have more options in LPL. You have less options here in LCK.
How many options do you have in LCK?
I think you have three options. You have
Three.
options,
Who's the third?
3.
Who's
You
the
know,
third, bro?
you know who the third is. You
Say
know
it.
who the third is.
Say it.
It's Hanwha Life number 1, Genji number 2, and the power of the fandom, the greatest of all time, at number 3. I think that's what.
You think they could beat Genji or Hanwha Life domestically? Because they
I
haven't
feel like
since 2022 spring. They haven't won a split since 2022 spring, and they downgraded their roster. So sell it to me. Why can they win?
because you aren't sure how Duro's going to handle being in Gen G, even though he was probably the best part of BNK Fearex last split. You're not sure. You don't know how the duo is going to be there. And it's the first time Gen G is changing their roster compared to like when they didn't. I feel like this is the best time to win. It's when their roster's a little shaky. For Hanwha Life, like they're you're hoping that it's not a bot lane meta, and maybe it won't stay a bot lane meta at the end there. But I feel like that's a hard sell. I mean, Daddy Doran, that's a whole thing, right? So,
all right,
we'll see. That's the sell. Also, the power of DOGFK or whatever
dog
it is,
fuck.
DOFGK. Yeah, dog fuck.
Yeah, dog fuck. DOGFK. True.
Yeah.
You did it right, dGon.
There it is. I'll let the fans decide how we do that one, but I'm pretty sure I did it wrong, and I'm gonna get put in a clip. Jamada, you go. How do you see this one playing out here?
Yeah, I kind of just agree, except I'll just kind of put a hard stopper and say I don't think T1 are ever top 2, like ever domestically. Not scared to say it. It's not really. I don't think it's a bold stance to have. Their power only activates internationally, so yeah, it should just be a Gen G HLE race as far as I'm concerned.
In that order, Dom? That's the order you had too, right?
I had Genji, and then Hanwha Life. I think Genji got really underrated by people. Like the way that they controlled the map was better than everyone else, and I think that they'll still be able to do the same thing. I think the way that Keen and Chovy play side waves, I think Canyon has like the most discipline out of every jungler in that league. He's so smart about like understanding which fights to take, like where to place vision. He creates games where the enemy feels like they can't do anything because he's never making a wrong decision. His accuracy when it comes to decision making is the highest, and he's got good mechanics. So that's why he's like one of the best junglers of all time, right? I just think that people forgot how good Genji is, and now they're adding Ruler, so they have the one thing that they were kind of missing last year in clutch moments, which was the consistent AD who's going to bring those close games over the line in the team fights that are winnable. I don't know, man. I just think that's the best team in the league.
Yep.
Yeah. I cannot wait to just see this team up and running and just having games under the belt, facing conflict, because it's a different group of guys. As much as Lehenz's play was, suspect, especially at the end, he was a glue guy. He was the Joker guy. He was the one that if it was tense, he would, be the jovial guy to ease tension. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna have that for Duro. If Duro starts playing bad, or he has like a couple of Mohan moments or whatever. I am just interested to see how they handle conflict, which is why I think Hanwha Life is they're just primed to win. This is a team full of vets. They've been there before. They got it done last year in the face of no one picking them except Ox, and it was it's just very interesting, but I'm gonna have a lot of fun being at the doorstep of that one. All right,
I like it. They had Lehenz as the glue guy, and then they made him into glue at the end of the season. Well played,
they did.
to Genji.
During the fan like the not the fan thing, the exhibition match, the opening to the season opening event. They had the draft of the captains. So the captains were all selected by the 9 other players. They picked the top player in each position, and they drafted. They could have drafted both Doran, but then whoever was the top captain, Keen, was like, I'm going to pick Rich. That was a little weird. Rich was on DRX. So you didn't have to pick him. He had the opportunity to pick him. And then later on, Lehenz is in Nongshim, so he's not on a valuable team. Yep. Carrier had the opportunity to pick Lehenz, and he goes, I guess I'm going to pick Palu. He just goes and picks Palu. Both Doran and Lehenz get left off of this very fan-focused, outward, goofy event. So a lot of the Korean fan like comments were like, "Ooh, it feels like no one likes Doran and Lehens, and no one's defending
I love
Lehens, but all the
Doran, bro.
fans
I think
were like
Doran
defending Doran."
can bring me so much happiness this year. I think Doran can bring me insane amounts of happiness this year. I'm such a Doran fan. It's crazy.
All right. We will see. Again, big changes over across every single region. Those were some of our picks for the top teams in each region. Do you agree with us or not? Let us know in the comments, and we will get back to you and bring up some of your most interesting takes in our next episode. Jamada, you did it. Episode done. How was it, man?
Fun. I enjoyed this. This has been great. You guys are awesome to hang out with. And you haven't bullied me yet. I've not been grazed. I feel like I've maybe made it out a little bit lucky. Mostly from Dom, because he can't control his hatred. So
Yep.
maybe
No, it will
maybe he
happen soon.
forgot. I was
It'll
gonna maybe he forgot, just maybe wanted to go easy this episode. But
First
yeah, no, it's
episode.
been great.
Yeah, we'll sneak him into it. Again, Dom, where can people catch your content this week?
I'll be streaming every day this week. We're just going to be doing LPL every single day. And then on Thursday, that's the big debut of my team playing our first matches. So we'll be playing on Thursday. The games are around, I believe, 6 Central European time, 6 p.m. Central European time. So I'm ready, bro. I'm ready to go.
All right, NLC just getting the viewership boost that they didn't know that they needed. Jamada, what are you doing?
Oh,
this
we
week?
knew.
Oh, no, they knew they needed it.
No, they knew. Look, I've been at NLC, I haven't been on the NLC broadcast for a long time, almost 3 years. I'm back there now. I feel like I've chosen a very good time to return
Yeah.
to the league. So I'm looking forward to seeing Dom as technically an NLC rep now again, what you're going to be doing for the league and what you're going to be doing for the team. So yeah, that's where you will also find me and see me alongside Dom's team on the official NLC broadcast on that Thursday.
All right. And then I will be kicking off LCK, the first spring split that I'm doing in my career. Because when I was in LCS, I only did summer, and last year I only did summer. I was really nervous. It could have just really been like, all right, dGon, thank you. See you later. But no, bringing me back. We kick things off tomorrow with the big match, the Kespa Cup champions, the Bros. I actually got messaged by the manager. He was like, what's your address? We want to send you some stuff. I think I'm getting a jersey, boys. I'm getting a jersey
Oh hell
for
yeah!
the Kespa Cup champs against DRX. And then the season runs from there. All right, everyone. That does it here from us. Thanks to all of our friends and our sponsors. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of this episode. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Last Free Nation has all of its content up and running. We're kicking off the 2025 season with the bang. We appreciate you being here with us. We'll see you next week for more Power Spike action. See ya.